Well, now to religious protection. Remember all the concerns expressed during the gay marriage debate last year about the florists, bakers, limo drivers who would be discriminated against if they wanted to refuse service to a same-sex couple. Since the laws came in, there hasn't exactly been a rush of claims that these religious freedoms have been affected. Nonetheless, the Prime Minister did make a firm commitment during the gay marriage debate, under pressure from some in his ranks, to hold a thorough review into religious protections. The former Attorney-General and former Immigration Minister, Philip Ruddock, was chosen to conduct the review. On Friday, he handed his report to the government. It's not been released yet. The government wants to frame its response first. During that debate last year, Liberal Senator James Paterson drafted a bill that would have enshrined some sweeping religious protections. He withdrew the bill ultimately due to a lack of support on the floor. He's with me now. Senator, thanks for your time.
Good to be with you, David.
So, gay marriage, it's been legal now for a number of months, so less than 6 months. Do you see any evidence that it has curtailed or affected religious freedoms at all?
No, not yet. The early signs are good. There haven't been any of the high-profile cases that we've seen in some other jurisdictions, in the United States in particular, but also in the United Kingdom and Ireland. So that's good.
So do we need to change the law then to protect religious freedoms any more than they currently are?
If the worst criticism that can be made of action to protect religious freedom is that it might be unnecessary, then that's a criticism I'm very happy to wear, because this is something that is going to be an issue, I suspect, for decades to come. And just because in the first 6 months of same-sex marriage being legalised there haven't been any issues in that space, or any other issues completely unrelated to same-sex marriage that also impact religious freedom, doesn't mean that there's no need to put in place good protections.
So what sort of additional protections do you believe are warranted now?
Well, as you said, the report's been handed to the government last week, and as backbenchers like me aren't yet privy to the details, so I don't want to prejudice the report before I've read it. But I think there's a couple of principles that we can consider thinking about the report when we receive it. Firstly, it is the job of the Parliament to deal with the issue of clashing human rights. Human rights clash, they impinge on each other, and the Parliament has to make, I think, conscious and deliberate decisions about which rights prevail and when they prevail.
You're spot on, because human rights do clash. You know, the right of someone's religious freedom to be able to, you know, take a religious held view on same-sex marriage against the right of a same-sex couple not to be discriminated against. You're saying it's not the court, it's the Parliament that needs to draw the lines there. So,
exactly.
I mean, how do you draw the line?
Well, these are public policy questions fundamentally, they're values questions.
What's your own view when those two come into conflict?
Well, one of my concerns is that there's a bit of an unexamined assumption in this debate, which is when the right to non-discrimination clashes with any other human right, whether it's freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of association, the right to non-discrimination almost always prevails, or certainly that's the view of the kind of the left human rights lobby view, is the right to non-discrimination should always prevail. That's an assumption I think that should be tested, because otherwise basically what we're saying is that there's a hierarchy of rights and non-discrimination is the first in that hierarchy and everything else comes below that, and it's okay to diminish the rest of the rights that come below that. I think we need to have a proper conversation about whether we actually agree that that's the case.
Well, although some say, where does religious freedom start and finish? You know, what if it's a religion that says it's okay for girls to be married at 14? What if it's a religion that says it's okay to hit your wife? You know, clearly that cannot trump Australian law.
No, absolutely not. But I think those breach so many other rights that's very easy to deal with. I mean, you're right, David. Religious freedom is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It is not an excuse to do whatever you like. It does have limitations.
The examples too around schools, and some of the submissions to this Ruddock review went to religious schools being able to hire and fire. You know, if a teacher, for example, were to be involved in a same-sex marriage, should the school be allowed to fire them? What's your view on that?
My view is what's more important than that teacher's kind of personal characteristic is their values. So if a teacher is willing to teach the values and uphold the values of their school, then my view, whatever their personal characteristics are, gender, sexuality, race, religion, whatever, are not really relevant. That's my personal view. I think an important principle should be, though, in this space, that what schools have been protected to do and allowed to do for the last couple of decades in Australia should not change as a result of other changes in the law, such as to same-sex marriage. We shouldn't take away the rights that schools have today. And if we need to enshrine that and clarify that, then I think that would be helpful.
OK, so just to be clear, you have an open mind, obviously. You're not demanding any particular change right now, but you'll look at the report when it is released, and you are open at least to a change that would enshrine some greater protection for religious freedom.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think probably everyone will agree that there needs to be more robust for religious protections for religious freedom. They may disagree what those robust protection needs to be or what that extra protection needs to be.
Well, I mean, George Brandis, when he was Attorney General, did move during the gay marriage debate to insert the following phrase: "Nothing in this Act limits or derogates from the right of any person in a lawful manner to manifest his or her religious or belief in worship." This was about making it an absolute right. Is that something you'd like to come back to?
I voted for that, and as people said at the time, it was a bit of a worry that something as modestly worded as that was voted down and did not pass. I mean, I thought that was pretty uncontentious personally.
So you'd still like to see that?
Well, something like that I'd be very comfortable with. It certainly wouldn't do any harm, I don't think.
All right. Before I let you go, a lot of kerfuffle about the pre-selection facing Liberal women. You're under some, or you're mentioned at least as being under some threat as well. How safe do you feel about your pre-selection?
Oh, we can never be too confident or too complacent about our own pre-selections. I mean, we are only here because we have the endorsement of our parties, and my view is you have to earn that endorsement every day, and it's not like you can earn it once and then you're here for a lifetime. You have a career here without it being challenged. So I'm very happy to submit my record to Liberal Party members in Victoria, and I'm very happy to be subject to their judgment. I hope that they'll look on it favourably, but it is always their right and their prerogative to take away my endorsement or anyone else's whenever they like.
Liberal Senator James Paterson, we shall see what happens on that regard, but for now, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Quick break and we'll be back with more.